Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we've got one really fiery victory speech to unpack.
Oh, yeah.
And it was given by Eliezer Molina, and he's a newly elected senator in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
And get this, he won without any support from the major political parties.
Really?
Or traditional media.
Wow.
It was a totally grassroots campaign fueled by digital platforms, and it's just brimming with passion.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And what's really interesting here is that Molina isn't just any old engineer who decided to run for office. This victory speech is like a crash course in Puerto Rican politics. Frustrations, the hopes, the deep desire for change that he's clearly tapped into.
Okay, let's unpack this. He keeps saying this phrase, El Pueblo.
Right.
The people. It's like he's framing this whole thing as David versus Goliath, the people, against this powerful system.
Exactly. Molina's entire message hinges on this idea of El Pueblo rising up to take back their power.
Yeah.
He's painting this picture of a rigged system, pointing fingers at specific people like Judge Anibal Vega Borges and former Senate President Tomás Rivera Schatz, and accusing them of manipulating the election to keep Molina off the ballot.
And he does not hold back on accusations of corruption, does he? He even says that the PNP is dying slowly and agonizingly.
Right.
The PNP being one of the main political parties in Puerto Rico.
Right. But it's interesting how he connects those accusations to the very real struggles of everyday people.
Yeah.
He talks about teachers, social workers, therapists, people forced to compromise their principles just to hold on to their jobs. He argues they're trapped in this system that only protects the powerful at the expense of everyone else.
He really goes after Tomás Rivera Schatz in particular, doesn't he? He even calls him out for mocking celebrities who advocate for social change in Puerto Rico. It feels like he's drawing a line in the sand saying, I'm the champion of the people against the political elite.
And that's a key point to remember. Molina isn't just throwing around accusations for no reason. He's trying to connect with those who feel ignored and marginalized by the establishment.
Yeah.
He wants to be seen as a voice for the voiceless, promising to hold the powerful accountable and bring about a more just and equitable Puerto Rico.
Okay. But he also talks about plans for the future.
Right.
Things like education reform, economic development, environmental protection.
Yeah.
He doesn't just want to tear down the system. He wants to build something better.
Yeah, he does. And he specifically highlights the need to empower local industries, especially agriculture and fishing. He's really critical of what he sees as a trend toward prioritizing large-scale solar farms at the expense of food security.
Oh, wow.
He even calls out former Governor Wanda Vasquez Garced, accusing her of pushing through illegal permits for coastal development.
He's not making friends in high places, that's for sure. But that seems to be part of his appeal. He's seen as someone who's not afraid to speak truth to power, to challenge the status quo. It's almost like he's saying, I'm here to fight for you, even if it means making enemies along the way.
And that ties into another really interesting aspect of this speech. His complete rejection of both traditional political parties and corporate media. He repeatedly thanks the Campamento Carry.
Okay.
They're a group of activists who have been protesting against government corruption and environmental destruction for years. He credits them with paving the way for his victory and positions himself as a continuation of their fight.
So how did he manage to pull this off? I mean, no major party, no big media coverage. It seems almost impossible in today's political landscape.
This is where it gets really interesting. Molina claims to have completely bypassed those traditional channels, relying instead on the power of digital platforms. He used social media, Facebook Live in particular, to connect directly with voters, spread his message, mobilize support, and even raise funds.
He actually brags about breaking through algorithms and censorship attempts to get his message out there. So it's like he's turned the limitations of the digital world into an advantage, using it to connect with people who are hungry for change and feel ignored by the mainstream.
Exactly. And this connection is palpable in the speech. He doesn't just talk at people, he talks with them. He uses humor. He calls out his opponents with nicknames, and he constantly reiterates that this victory belongs to El Pueblo.
There's a real sense of energy and excitement there, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's created a movement, a collective force for change, fueled by shared frustration and a belief that a better future for Puerto Rico is possible.
Absolutely. And that's the real power of this speech. It's not just empty rhetoric. Molina's vision for change is deeply rooted in his understanding of the systems that he wants to dismantle.
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't just want to tweak things a little. He wants a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
But, those accusations he makes, while they're definitely attention-grabbing, are they substantiated?
That's a really crucial point. While these accusations are compelling and clearly resonate with a lot of people, they are at this point just that, accusations. We need more evidence, legal proceedings, independent investigations to get a clearer picture.
Right.
But what is undeniable is that Molina is tapping into this deep well of public sentiment. You know, this perception of widespread corruption and lack of accountability that has really eroded trust in the government.
He seems especially focused on how this alleged corruption impacts the lives of everyday people. You know, he talks about those impossible choices, the feeling of being trapped in a system that benefits the few.
Yeah, that's where his message really hits home. It's not just about abstract concepts like corruption or justice. He's connecting those ideas to the lived experiences of teachers struggling to make ends meet, of social workers facing burnout, of therapists forced to compromise their ethics to keep their jobs. He's painting a picture of a system that is failing its people, forcing them to leave their homeland to seek better opportunities elsewhere.
And this ties into his plans for economic development, doesn't it? He talks about empowering local industries, especially fishing and agriculture, and creating a more self-sufficient and sustainable Puerto Rico.
Absolutely. He even uses this vivid metaphor, shark skin, to describe how he'll expose the corrupt practices of those in power. It's like he's saying he'll strip away those superficial layers, the shiny veneer, to reveal the raw truth beneath. Remember his criticism of those large-scale solar farms. He sees that as a symptom of a larger problem, a system that prioritizes short-term profits and outside interests over the long-term well-being of the Puerto Rican people.
Okay, so I have to ask, what about that shark skin metaphor? What do you make of that?
It's brilliant, really. Think about it. Sharks are often seen as these powerful, almost mythical creatures. But their skin, despite its rough appearance, is incredibly efficient. It allows them to move through water with minimal resistance. Molina is essentially saying that he will use that same kind of resilience and tenacity to cut through the murky waters of corruption and expose the truth.
That makes so much sense. He's not afraid of a fight. He's ready to shake things up. But how does all this passionate rhetoric translate into concrete action? What's his plan once he's actually in the Senate?
Well, he emphasizes transparency and access to information as key pillars of his approach. He promises to use his position to conduct public hearings and investigations to bring corrupt practices into the light and hold those responsible accountable. He's talking about a radical shift in how the government operates, a move away from secrecy and backroom deals towards openness and public scrutiny.
And what about his plans for education reform? He seemed pretty passionate about that, too.
He wants to move away from the traditional model of rote memorization and standardized testing, which he believes is stifling creativity and critical thinking. He envisions an education system that fosters innovation and entrepreneurship, equipping young Puerto Ricans with the skills they need to thrive in a rapidly changing world. It's about creating a system that empowers individuals to build a better future for themselves and for Puerto Rico.
So it's not just about tearing down the old system, it's about building something new and better in its place. He's got a lot on his plate, that's for sure.
He does, and he's very clear that he can't do it alone. He repeatedly calls on the people to stay engaged, to hold him accountable, to be active participants in this process of rebuilding Puerto Rico. It's this idea of collective action, of shared responsibility that really sets him apart.
It's interesting, though, because while his victory is significant, it's just one seat in the Senate. How much can he realistically achieve, even with the support of the people?
That's a crucial question. He'll need to navigate complex political dynamics, build alliances, and find ways to work within a system that he's been vehemently criticizing. It'll be fascinating to see how he balances his role as a fiery outsider with the practical realities of governing.
And speaking of fascinating part, we haven't even touched on the elephant in the room, the role of digital platforms in all of this. How did he manage to harness the power of social media to achieve such a stunning victory, seemingly against all odds?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it really does feel like a whole new way of doing politics. I mean, we've talked about Molina's, strong rhetoric and his accusations, his vision for Puerto Rico. But what really stands out is how he's completely embraced digital platforms. Not even just to communicate, but almost as like weapons against the establishment.
Yeah, he's not just using social media to get his message out. He's bypassing the political parties and the big media outlets, going straight to the people.
Yeah, and he's not quiet about it either.
No.
He repeatedly calls out corporate media, accusing them of trying to silence him. of underestimating these alternative channels.
Yeah, there's one part in the speech where he talks about breaking through algorithms and censorship
I remember that.
to get his message heard.
It's like he sees it as a badge of honor almost, like a symbol of being an outsider.
And look at his massive online following.
It's true.
All these people who feel like he sees them and hears them, he can speak directly to them, unfiltered, unapologetic, and with this sense of humor that's really disarming.
Yeah, it's like he's figured out how to be authentic
in
a world that's full of overly polished political messages. He's not afraid to get personal or make fun of himself even.
Right.
You know, he uses nicknames for his opponent.
Like boiled egg.
Yeah, exactly. It's brilliant.
Think about how different his approach is compared to a traditional politician.
Oh, yeah?
Giving some carefully written speech, Molina comes across as a real person, someone who understands the frustrations and the hopes of the people he's talking to.
Yeah, and he doesn't just talk at them either.
No.
He wants them to share his videos,
Yeah.
spread his message, be part of this movement.
Exactly.
It's all about collective action, empowering people to take control of their future.
It is. He's not trying to be a savior.
Right.
He doesn't act like he's the only answer to Puerto Rico's problems. This is a collective effort, a shared struggle for a better future. It's El Pueblo rising up, reclaiming their power, demanding accountability.
So could this be the future of politics then? This kind of grassroots digital movement that skips over those traditional power structures and speaks right to the people.
It's a powerful model for sure, and Molina's victory shows what it can do. But it also makes you think about some important questions.
Like what?
Like, can this work in other places, other political systems?
That's a good question.
And what about the downsides of the digital world?
Oh, yeah. You know, those echo chambers and misinformation and manipulation.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Definitely.
There's amazing potential for connection and for getting people involved and for making sure marginalized voices are heard. But there's also that risk of manipulation and division and spreading harmful ideas.
Yeah, it's complicated.
You need to be able to think critically and understand the media and have a healthy amount of skepticism. It's about recognizing that these digital tools can be used for good or for bad, and understanding the responsibility that comes with using them.
So for you listening, what are your takeaways from this deep dive into Eliezer Molina's victory speech? Do you feel hopeful, concerned, curious?
We've looked at the passionate language, the accusations, the ambitious plans, the innovative use of digital platforms.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's up to you to decide what resonates most with you. Does this mean we're seeing a shift in power? Are we entering a new era of politics driven by technology and fueled by the people?
We want to hear what you think. What questions does this bring up for you? What implications do you see for the future of politics, not just in Puerto Rico, but globally?
Keep those questions coming, because that's what the deep dive is all about.
It is.
Exploring ideas, challenging what we think we know, and encouraging you to think critically about the world around us.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.